Okay, we're going to have a look at the final tutorial for status effects, number 12 I think, and we're going to cover what's left: Intangibility, BuffMaterials, delayed status effects, and StatBoosts. So we're going to start with Intangibility. I've made an Intangibility here. By default you're intangible to everything, and that costs you 100 points because it's incredibly powerful. So I've dropped that into the violet array, and this means while this is running I can't be hurt by melee attacks. There was a little bit of falling damage you saw there. Projectiles go straight through me. Beams have no effect on me. I'm basically ghost-like and I can't be hurt, but I can hurt back still. So to make that less cheaper than 100 points, you could, for example, make it only apply to physical attacks. And if we do that, then the laser robot with its radiation beam will be able to hurt me while I'm intangible to physical. Come over here. It can do damage to me, but the other two can't. Even better, and you know, the violet array here is costing me quite a lot still. What you might want to look at is making it into a power block. So here I've made a power block, you know, where I have to hold the key down, I can't fight back, but I'm intangible to, let's make it intangible to everything again. Or we could make it intangible to corporal, so that psychic attacks can still hurt me. And I've added into this as well a phase walking buff. So that's got one modifier, intangible plus 200, which means I can walk through pretty much any physics layer I want. I can walk through walls as well. So the intangibility status effect is just the the combat defensive part of it. If you want to be able to walk through walls, 8, like that. I'm seeing a little animation bug there. Yep, walking through walls like that. You can walk through these canisters and so on. Then you want to put a buff on top as well. So that's intangibility, used sparingly. You may want to put it in for limited damage types. You could have, you know, as well as being able to sort of phase through solid matter, you could have robots which are intangible to psionics. They have no brain or mind. Psionic attacks go straight through them. I've got optical girl who's intangible to light, because she's completely invisible. Light attacks go straight through her, and that's more of a kind of flavor power in that way. So that's intangibility. We'll go on to BuffMaterials now. So we'll create one here. Status effects, BuffMaterial, there it is. And these basically just add resistances to you. And you get entries to change the resistance to all the different damage types, and to also add a mass multiplier. So, you know, what we could do here is we could make one called, what's the material? Might someone be made out of wood. And we could say, right, so they're going to be fairly resistant to crushing, piercing, not bad. Toxic, maybe they're a little bit vulnerable to being living material, very vulnerable to fire. Don't like the cold. Electrical doesn't conduct very well. Energy, negative, nah. Psionic, no. Magic, maybe they're a bit resistant to magic, being wood. Acid burn. Is acid burn wood? I've no idea. Sonic. Water, quite resistant to water attacks, and get a mass multiplier of 100% extra mass, and so on. Generally you don't want to make new ones of these, because in assets, RPG rules, Power sets, generic. Standard materials, we've got crystal, energy, fire, ice, metal, plastic, rock and wood, and they're already set up. And one reason to use these standard ones is, like I said when I was talking about telekinesis before, you might want to have a status effect check on something. Your telekinesis will only affect objects which have the metal material on them. So these things, rather than sort of being a special per character thing, become you know, sort of a standard part of your game physics setup. We'll just have a look at the material buffs that are in here. This material buff, it's BuffMaterial, they're called. So we have another one which is wet, which, if we have a look at that, that's in here in the game physics in the water section, and wet basically makes you resistant to fire, you take more damage from cold and electricity and a bit less damage from acid burn, and that can sit on top of another material. I'll just show you how to get wet. Well, jump in the swimming pool, come out, and he's got the wet material on him now, and you can see the visual effect there, a little bit of funky shader code I made with some drippy particles to make it look like the character's wet, and that's going to wear off in a few seconds. So while he's got that on him, it changes his resistances a little bit. So you could use a buff material if you've got some peculiar set of resistances and vulnerabilities you want to infer on a particular character or set of characters. Like undead, for example, you might say, right, they're vulnerable to fire, resistant to magic and psionics. What else? Resistant to radiation, resistant to cold, take extra damage from energy or light, and so on and so on. You might put that together as a buff material. It's just sort of an easy way to do that. Yeah, so that's buff materials. I won't actually go and make one of them and stick it on Rainbow Guy. You sort of get the idea how they're used, hopefully. The other ones we have left to look at are StatBoosts. Pretty straightforward. They boost your stats, which you talk about in the RPG settings on the section on stats. So they work kind of like a buff. So let's make one that gives us an extra 50 strength and an extra 50 endurance. And, you know, we could call this super stamina, whatever. We'll get the violet ray to give us this stat boost here when it's activated, and restart, and you'll see what happens. So we've got the violet order on there. This one doesn't have a status. But if we have a look in the training screen at Rainbow Guy, he's now got a strength of 60 and endurance of 60. So our energy's now gone up to 150 as a result. He's recovering that. And because of our increased strength, we can pick up rocks and throw them around like that. And when we do melee attacks, we're actually doing extra damage because of that increased strength. So it's a kind of indirect buff, really. The effects of each stat that we're changing, strength, endurance, etc., are found in assets, RPG rules, resources in the RPG settings object, and there it says that strength will increase melee damage and heavy lifting. Endurance, which we used, will increase maximum energy by 1 per point, and so on. Yeah, so they're good, you know, if you want to have a character who can boost their super strength somehow, or for having items that increase your strength and dexterity if you're using that kind of thing. Yeah, that's stat boosts there. And the last one to have a look at is delayed status effects. So we'll just make one of them there. delayed status, really all that does is basically applies another status after a certain amount of time. So we could say we're going to apply flames after, we're going to apply flames for 6 seconds after a 5-second delay. And we'll get into the other ones in a minute. So that's a basic one where basically after 5 seconds the target will burst into flame for 6 seconds. And we'll put that on the red ray. Where is it? That was doing taunt. So delayed status on there. Right, and let's use it on the test dummy. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Burst into flames for 6 seconds. Put it on this oxygen capsule here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And go. Yeah, so you can, you know, use this for like a delayed explosion with a little sort of trip mine or something. Various tricks like that. Let's put a little explosion on there, actually. Actually, good idea I have. Let's make this into one that does knockdown. Now, so we could say the red ray is now like a bad luck, a jinx bolt. After 5 seconds you fall over. The status duration no longer matters with knockdown because it's an immediate effect. And let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoops. There we go. Knocked him down. The delay variance, we can say, yeah, 5 seconds plus or minus 1 second, so it'll be between 4 and 6 seconds. We can say how many ticks. We're going to make him fall over. We're going to tick every 3 seconds, and we will have 3 ticks. So basically at 5 seconds, 8 seconds, and 11 seconds after, he's going to fall down now. So the status gets applied multiple times here. Here's our bad luck spell. Did I just miss it? Yeah, 5% chance to do that. I shouldn't be so surprised. 4, 5, fall over. 1, 2, 3, fall over. 1, 2, 3, whoops. And that's our 3 ticks done. 1, 2, 3, don't fall over. The effect has worn off now. Yeah, so that's delayed status. You can use that for basically setting up little sequences of events like that, kind of. You know, you could put a curse on someone so they explode periodically. Yeah, it's one of those versatile ones where it's basically doing another status and you can do a number of things with it. Okay, so that is all the status effects so far covered in RPG rules, except of course the ones you make yourself, because you can extend this system and create your own status effects without any problem. Alright.